Notable Norwegian, Rikard Hammer. Rikard Hammer was born in Buringfjord near Bodø, Norway, on April 20th, 1902. When he was 16 years old, his family was sick in bed with the Spanish flu. His mother went out to pick the potatoes by herself and died a few days later. So he carried this with him all of his life. He then went fishing near the Lofoten Islands to help support the family. He came to America in 1927 with the dream of becoming a history professor because he knew European history and was well read and loved the plays of Henrik Ibsen, reciting long passages in Norwegian until the day he died. He attended Pacific Lutheran College in Tacoma, Washington, until his money ran out. But he had experience fishing, so he moved to Ketchikan, Alaska, and began commercial fishing. He joined the Sons of Norway in Ketchikan and married Borghild Nergard in 1939, and they had two daughters, Thordis and Ingrid. They also loved and reared Borghild's niece, Gerda Nergard. The canneries in Alaska had fish traps in those days, so they had so many fish they didn't need the fishermen's fish. And they treated the Alaska fishermen as though they were doing them a favor to take their fish off their hands. So they paid them 10 cents a fish, regardless of the size, when he first started fishing. So they didn't make much money, but they ate a lot of fish. He told of one time they had caught so many fish that they only had about 8 inches of freeboard coming in. They sold all the fish and lost money on the trip. However, he was hardy and stubborn, so he endured. He told stories of fishing in the Gulf of Alaska during the winter, when the superstructures of the boat would freeze up and get top heavy and roll over and sink. So I asked him one time what he was doing out there fishing in the Gulf of Alaska in the middle of winter. And his answer was, we had to eat. One time he was setting a seine net with a skiff when the skiff overturned. He went into the water and came up under the net. All he could think of was to swim in one direction. And fortunately, he chose a good direction because he came up outside of the net and was able to grab the skiff and be rescued. The Southeast Alaska fishermen formed a cooperative to try to get a better price for their fish. So they had a fish storage place in Ketchikan, hired a manager, and had a market for their fish in New York. They shipped their fish to Prince Rupert, Canada, and then transported by rail across Canada. The first carload got sidetracked by the Canadian Railroad, and all of their fish spoiled. So the Canadian Railroad apologized and said that they got the wrong car by mistake. When they shipped the second carload, the same thing happened. So they knew then that the canneries were paying the railroad to sidetrack their fish and put them out of business. He often said the history of Alaska is one of exploitation by outside interests. Rikard died on December 3rd, 1992 in Juneau at the age of 90.